Hi, welcome to my latest video. Today I'm going to be changing the gearbox oil on my Land Rover Freelander 2. This is a 2.2 diesel TD4E and it's a 2009 XS model. So what have I got here? First things first, the gearbox oil. This is what I'm using. It's fully synthetic 75W90, not to be confused with the rear diff oil in the actual differential, not the Haldex. The rear differential uses sort of normal gear oil. I think they call it EPX. It's 8090, I think it is, a standard differential final drive gear oil. The gearbox on these Freelancers uses slightly different oil. This is the oil, I bought this in Halfords. This is the oil that their computer recommends, and it actually says down there it's applies to various makes of vehicle, including Volvo. Now, Volvo, you might wonder what their relationship is with the Land Rover Freelander 2. A lot of the parts on the Freelander 2 are Volvo parts, including things like the transfer box and possibly the gearbox, although the gearbox is bolted to the engine, which is the 2.2 TD4 is an engine that's used in Fords, Citroens, Peugeots and various other cars. So it's all a bit of a cobbled together mix of different manufacturers' parts. The important thing to know is that this is the API GL4. Okay, so it's the GL4 gearbox oil. Now this does actually peel off. I'm not going to peel it off now, but that is the gear oil that is recommended, certainly on the Halfords parts desk computer. Other brands of oil, slightly different specifications are available, but that's the one I'm going to be using today. Now, gearbox oil is a little bit fiddly. The drain is underneath on the UK passenger side, the near side of the engine. Let's just lie down and see if we can see that. No, I do have a sump guard fitted, so I don't know if you're going to be able to see it. No, it's around here. Okay, don't confuse it with the general engine oil. The engine oil sump drain plug is further over towards the center. The gearbox oil drain plug is over here. We'll expose that in a minute and have a look at that. Now, before we even think about draining the oil, we need to locate and test that we can undo the filler plug, and that's really important. Okay, because the last thing you want to do is drain the gearbox oil and then find that you haven't got the right tool, or you can't undo the filler, or even if you can undo it, you can't manage to get the oil back in. Otherwise you'll end up driving around with no gearbox oil. So what else have I got here? Okay, so first things first, I've got a jack, trolley jack. I'll explain why I've got that as well as my ramps in a minute. I've got 24mm ring spanner, not an offset one. It has got an open end to it. The 24mm ring spanner, that's what you need for the drain plug. The drain nut is 24mm. There's not enough room to get a socket on it. You do need a spanner there. And then for the filler plug, again, you're not going to be able to use the spanner, so you do need the socket. Okay, so the socket is for the filler, the spanner is for the drain. You can't interchange them, you can't get away with one or the other. You do need both. So same size, 24mm. This is a 1/2 inch. Of course 3/8 and various other sizes are available. I'd go for the 1/2 inch. I mean, the drain plug shouldn't be on that tight. If it is, some idiot has tightened it right up. It's in an aluminium gearbox housing, so it really shouldn't be that tight. But the reason why I've bought a 1/2 inch is because I've got a long 1/2 inch extension bar. So the filler is in there somewhere behind the wheel. In a minute I'll put it on full lock, we'll get it jacked up, and we'll have a look, see where it is, and see if we can get a long extension bar in to loosen that. We don't need to remove it just yet, it's just checking that we can get to it and we can loosen it. The other thing I've got here is a syringe here. This is a 150 ml syringe with a hose there. Now that is to fill it. Some gear oil bottles have a spout. Okay, now this one does. Okay, so might not need that. We don't need to use that to suck out the old oil because there is a drain plug. Unlike the transfer case, which doesn't have a drain plug, and I'll be doing that oil in a different video. Okay, so I may need to use this syringe to suck out the old oil. Some gearboxes and final drives and bits and bobs on the Freelander 2 are sort of fill and forget or top up only. Others have a drain plug. The Gearbox does have a drain plug. The interval for renewing the fluid, I think, is about every 10 years. You probably want to do it, I would say, every 60 to 100,000 miles. I mean, this vehicle's on 145,000 now, and it's still on the original gearbox oil. Hopefully there will actually be some oil in the gearbox left when I drain it. It is getting a little bit whiny and a little bit difficult to get into gear, so it's long overdue, but I've had so many other jobs to do on this vehicle that it's just always been pushed down the list, so today's the day. So these are 1 litre bottles. The capacity of the gearbox is 1.9 litres, so I bought 2 litres, and we refill it up to the level of the filler plug. Unlike the Haldex and the transfer case, where you're meant to fill it and brim it and then remove a certain amount, the gearbox is brim to fill, so you just literally fill it until it dribbles out. So I'm expecting to have a little bit left in one of those bottles. So I've got a jack here as well as ramps. Okay, so the jack I'm going to use to just jack up this corner first of all, pull that wheel off and just make sure that I can get to that filler plug and I can undo it. Okay, so it'd be very, very difficult to do it on ramps because you can't really take the wheel off with it on ramps. The wheel is going to be in the way, even on full lock. It's just a heck of a lot easier to get to that filler with the wheel removed. So that's what the jack is for. I'm going to check access to the filler first, and then I'm going to put the front of the car, I'm going to put the wheel back on. Once I know I can get to that filler, put the wheel back on, get the front up on ramps, which then allows me to crawl under the front end, get the my sort of oil catch can underneath there, drain out that gearbox oil, and well, yeah, we'll go from there. So first things to do, filler plug access. Okay, so I will put the phone down now and I will get that wheel off, get it jacked up, and I'll show you where the filler plug is. Okay, so I've removed that wheel and I'm going to show you where the filler plug is. It's there. Okay, so you can see, because of that aluminium sort of wall around it, that you can't get a spanner on. There's just no room to get a spanner in here. So you do need a socket for that one, a 24mm socket. Let's just get my socket that I bought and make sure that is the right size. Yeah, there you go. So then you can get a bar on here and get that undone. Just for now, just to check that we can actually get to it and undo it, and then we'll put the car on ramps and drain out the gearbox oil. Okay, so I've got my extension bar on there now. That is loose. I've already loosened it slightly actually. It shouldn't be too tight, but just give it a quick bash round and that'll loosen. Okay, so that's all we try and do for now. Just make sure that's finger tight. We'll be actually taking that out after we've drained the oil, but at least we know that we can remove that and refill. So now I'm going to pop the wheel back on. We'll get the car up on ramps. Okay, so I've put the car up on ramps, got my oil catch can ready, and I've also removed my Mantec sump guard and the factory engine under tray, sort of factory sump guard under the engine. And now you should be able to see here, this is the gearbox drain. Okay, so it's over on the near side, the UK passenger side, and you can see now there's not a lot of room. There's no room to really get a socket on there, hence you need a spanner, a ring spanner. 24mm ring spanner is the size, is the best type of spanner to use. So I'm going to undo that. Now that I know I can get to the filler and can undo the filler, I'm going to take this out, get my oil bottle underneath ready to catch whatever gearbox oil comes out. Hopefully some will come out, and we'll have a look at it. Just I'm not expecting it to be black because there shouldn't really be any soot in the oil, unlike the engine oil, but I am expecting it to have a few bits of metal in there. Hopefully that is a magnetic sump plug. I don't know if Land Rover fit those, but we'll have to have a look and see. Hopefully no large pieces of metal. So I'll get that undone, drain out the oil, and we'll see what we can find. And I need to go that way. There we go. That wasn't too tight actually. So let's make sure that we've got this thing directly underneath. I don't know how much is going to come out, so let's have a look and see. There we go. Come on, go down the hole. This is making a mess, making a big mess. Oil everywhere. Yuck. That came out a lot quicker than I thought. I thought it was going to be really thick, gloopy oil. Even the engine oil doesn't come out that thick, that quickly. God, it completely overwhelmed my oil bottle here. The oil couldn't go down the hole quick enough, and it's just gone absolutely everywhere. Right, I'm going to have to stop filming and go and get a cloth or something to mop this up. Okay, after a major clean-up operation, the sump plug's back in. I need to clean that up a bit and tighten it up. It's not a magnetic sump plug, it's just a standard one. I didn't see any big chunks of gear or other bits of metal coming out, but then again it all just went all over the place. So when I pour the oil from my catch can into an empty old engine oil bottle, I shall put it through a mesh and just check for any large pieces of metal, but didn't see any on the ground. Doesn't seem to be anything down here. I mean, I mopped up all the spilt oil, didn't see anything scary on the paper towels that I used to clean up. So right, I'm just going to tighten this one up. Which way are we going? Right, that way, I think. No. There we go. It's the other way because it's backwards. Right, now I'm going to just give that a little gentle nipping up there. Not too tight, certainly not using any power tools or long extension bars or anything on that. This is aluminium. Really don't want to rip those threads. Let's just clean up this oil here. Hang I noticed my engine actually has quite a lot of oil underneath here, some of these hoses. So as a separate video, I think I'll do a bit of investigation work and find out what's going on here. It could be an intercooler hose is split. The oil seems to be coming down the back of the engine, and there is a leak from the air intake duct, which leaks the oil that's in the crankcase ventilation gases. That seems to collect in the duct and then leak out of the joint and come down the back of the engine. It could also be coming from the turbocharger, or over near the intercooler up here or something like that. I don't know. I'll worry about that another time. So that sump plug for the gearbox oil is now back in. I can now put the sump guard and the under tray back on whilst the car's on ramps, and then I'm going to pop the car down off the ramps, take that wheel off again and brim the gearbox back up to the correct level. Now I do need to be a little bit careful. The reason why I've drained it up on ramps, not only because it's easy to get underneath, is because the car's level. If I did it with it up on the jack, then this filler would be sort of pointing up in the air and may not drain properly. So in order to get to the filler, you have to take the wheel off, so that corner is going to be high up. Now one option would be to put sort of axle stands or something to level up the car whilst the wheel's off. We're filling it in that direction, so there's no issues with it sort of filling. The only worry is that it could overfill, because if I fill it with the car leaning with one wheel up in the air, then it's going to dribble out of that filler, but it's actually going to be slightly fuller than it should be. I don't really see that being a problem. I'll just make sure I don't jack the car up too far up in the air. I can always lower it down slightly with the wheel off on the jack just to get it kind of leveled up. So right, okay, so under tray back on now, and then down off the ramps, and then we're going to refill. Okay, so I've refitted the sump guard under there and the engine under tray, taken the car down off the ramps, and now I've jacked the car up and removed this wheel. What I've then done is just lowered the jack very slightly just to get the front of the car level again. So this brake disc and hub here is sitting at the height that it would sit at if the wheel was on, and this just allows me to then fill up the gearbox oil and get the level absolutely correct, because if this corner of the car is up in the air, then of course the gearbox is at an angle, and it's very difficult to fill that to the correct level. So I'm now going to remove that filler there, which we loosened off earlier, and see if we can get 1.9 litres of gear oil into there. Okay, so I've removed that filler plug, and now I'm going to try and put all of this in using the spout on the bottle. I don't know if that's actually working. That's going in. This is why doing it with a syringe might be better. Just squeezing that bottle and just hoping that some's actually going in, really. A little bit has gone in. Right, I'll keep at it and see how much I can put in. So this is the second bottle, and it's pretty much all gone in. That is it. And I think it's just starting to... This is fiddly. Haynes manual describes refilling as extremely fiddly. I now see why. Reach in here and squeeze this bottle. I tried with the syringe, and the new oil was too thick. It just really was difficult to pump it in. I hope, yeah, I can see oil running back out. So that is it. It took the two full 1 litre bottles, so 2 litres, and that is now full. It needed two litres before the gearbox oil started to run back out of the... Oh no. Oh, now I've dropped the washer. Okay, right. Should really renew the copper washer under the filler and the drain plugs, but I've not bothered. That's now there. So that took almost 2 litres. These bottles have probably each got a little bit left in the bottom of them. So so I put in what I thought was about 1.9, and the oil had not reached the filler. The car is level. I could explain that if the car was on a lean, but it's not. I've leveled it out, and it needed, you know, almost 2 litres, and then the oil started to run back out of the hole, but only just. So I've now put that filler plug in and tightened that up, not too tight because it's aluminium, but just a sort of good hand tight, using my sort of wrench here, my ratchet, just nice and tight, but not sort of with a rattle gun or anything like that. So that is it. Gearbox oil done. Now I'm going to get that wheel put back on and get the car down off the jack, and that's that job done for another 100,000 miles. Okay, hope that was useful. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.